Hello, I'm Martin.
I'm Josh.
Welcome to Stride by Stride. This is a very special episode.
Very special. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, who have we got on today?
We've got Simon Dent.
Yeah, Simon Dent is from Save Our Souls, and he's also doing a brilliant charity event down in Australia.
Brilliant. I can't even believe we've actually got him on.
Yeah, that's great. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from him now.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Simon, it's fantastic that you're able to join Josh and I today. And I suppose what we wanted to start with was just talking about your kind of relationship with running, your background. So, what's your kind of running history? What have you done in the past to kind of give you the foundation?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's a real honour, and hopefully some of this will be interesting to your listeners. I mean, my relationship with running is fairly recent, really, I suppose, probably compared to a lot of your listeners. I'm 49 now, and I only really got into running about 9 years ago. As a teenager, sort of in my 20s, played a lot of recreational sport, not to a super high standard, but was a good cricketer and footballer. But didn't really have running in my life at all. And then it was really a sort of chance opportunity in 2014 when a sort of charity place for London Marathon was floating around the office and everyone else was sort of making excuses. It sort of landed on my lap, and that was it really. It was quite a reluctant sort of acceptance, but it coincided with meeting the lady who's now my wife, Lucy, and that was that really. It was sort of I think I was probably 38 at the time, maybe a bit younger, so that sort of, I'd been leading the lifestyle in London, quite boozy and all the rest of it, and just sort of, I think was probably looking for something. And I always think that moment, changed my life really, that when that invite landed on my desk.
And that, I mean, it sounds like it's always a double-edged sword, that one, isn't it? It's like, we've got a marathon place going, who wants it? And it's like, actually, London, great. But then it's like, I've never done anything like that. So, how did you kind of prepare yourself for that?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably it was definitely actually pre me going on YouTube and sort of having running influencers or anything like that. I mean, obviously social media's around, but I certainly wasn't on any of the big platforms. So it was really just a case of speaking to people. I think I bought the odd book, and you won't be surprised to hear that the first marathon was quite a painful one. I think I got round in 4 hours 30. But it definitely lit a fire inside me. It wasn't one of those marathons. Well, actually, I was told it was one of those marathons where I said I'd never do it again. But I was actually then offered a place by the same charity for the following year, and pretty quickly after the April event, so I pretty quickly got into a sort of new routine really. And it was funny because at the time, I look back now and I always remember a 10k being a really long run. There was a route from where I lived in sort of Shepherd's Bush in central London, and there was like a 10k route. There was a nice route along the river, sort of Hammersmith Bridge, Putney Bridge, and back to Shepherd's Bush, and it was like a real oh God, I've got to do that again. And it was sort of like, that was my real Everest at the time. And I remember it becoming a regular sort of Sunday thing, and like a lot of your listeners and yourselves, you sort of, once you get into that world and that community, different distances become normalized, and then suddenly you meet someone who can do 15k, and you're like, wow, 15k, like, can I come with you? And you just like unlocking all these different layers.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've got a friend and he's training for Run to the Stones next weekend.
Oh yeah, wicked.
And a couple of weeks ago, he phoned me and said, can we go for a training run, 50k? And I was like, yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Like a couple of years ago, I would have needed like 3 months to prepare for that.
Yeah. 14-week training plan for it.
But literally, but also like, I would carb load before my 10k. I mean, I had no real idea of what was going on, but actually it's those sort of steps you take. And then I think my relationship with alcohol had also changed, where I was just a bit bored of drinking, 3 or 4 nights a week. And as I said, I'd met my now wife, and so there was definitely a void and a sort of space opening up in my life that actually, apart from going to football, there was sort of like, okay, there's a bit of time at weekends now. What am I going to do? And then so yeah, it sort of just, it was a lovely sort of replacement of that void of, being a sort of lad in London Field.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how's this all come about then? So you've been running marathons and sort of 10Ks and half marathons. That's quite a big jump to what you're about to do.
Yeah.
How did it all sort of come about?
I mean, as I say, that's escalated quickly. It's sort of 2018, I did my first ultra, which funny enough was also a threshold event, which was Race to the King.
Yeah.
So I'd done 3 marathons before. I'd done London twice, 4, London twice, Manchester and Belfast, and then decided, right, I'm going to go for the ultra distance. Loved Race to the King in 18. Then in 19 did Race to the Stones. And again, I look back on that as one of my real fondest sort of running, beautiful summer's evening, finishing the Stones, just, amazing memory. And that's when I was like, right, okay, I'm really enjoying this. It's a sort of, I still say to people today, I believe it's a talent. Well, I don't mean this is patronising most people, but it's a sort of talentless sport, and that it's something you can pretty quickly teach yourself if you're a certain build. And I didn't have any historical injuries, so it was all sort of coming quite easily. And I was like, well, actually, this could become a hobby. And so, did Stones in 19, and then obviously lockdown happened, and then that's really when things got turbocharged, because came into 2020, obviously the pandemic came. I had a few big races lined up for 2020, which didn't happen, and then we decided as a family to move out of central London down to the South Downs, to East Sussex. And we're right on the South Downs way here. So we sort of suddenly had that summer of 2020 with just, beautiful countryside, beach 10 minutes away, South Downs all around us. And so that's when I started sort of going on runs and losing time. And, we all talk about flow state. That was just a regular thing for me, because I was running, I was not seeing, and still to today, I can go out for a 3-4 hour run and not see another person or car. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I started to realise, okay, because London, as you guys probably know, or any city, you're running, there's traffic lights, there's ads, there's stimulation, there's people, and it's all quiet. Whereas just being out in the countryside, it just unlocks something. So in answer to your question, I sort of, the first few years here was just knocking out marathons every weekend, just without really, like, just for fun, I suppose. And then I guess it was off the back of the pandemic where myself and 2 friends, we decided that we wanted to do a big charity run, and we decided to do a 100-miler. We basically set up our own event, which was a two laps of London. Okay. And we did a fundraising event for a charity called Greenhouse Sport. And that was that. We did 2 laps of London. It took us 23 hours. And off the back of that, I sort of realised now that as we said, what 4 years ago I would never even dreamt of was now sort of becoming my reality and my normality. And then very quickly sort of started ticking off a few UTMB races. In 2023, I competed in Marathon des Sables, which again was sort of one of those races that you hear about and people spoke about, going to the Sahara, and sort of just the prep and the organisation and the stage race and adventure elements of it really appealed to me. So Marathon des Sables did in 2023, which again was incredible. And I suppose that I look back at the long day of that as probably my toughest day of racing. And as for sort of cookies in the cookie jars reference points, like there's not much I don't think can knock me over now if I can get through that. I mean, it took me 23 hours on the long day, and I've still got the video of me crossing the line, and that for me is just such an empowering sort of video to watch. Like, and so off the back of MDS, I was like, what's next? So last year did Dragons Back. Okay. Which I say did Dragons Back. I actually DNF'd the Dragons Back, but finished the hatchling. It was it was amazing experience. The whole back and forth from Wales, sort of once a month to recce bits of the route. I think I'd had the reason I signed up for Dragon's Back was that I'm actually got fear of heights, so I thought that signing up for a mountain ultra would be a good thing to tackle head on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it?
Well, so it was, because I don't know if you're familiar with the race. On day one, you have to navigate Crib Goch.
Yeah.
And so for me, Crib Goch was the thing that made me feel sick. And so I managed to cross it on 2 recces with a mountain rescue guide who took me up there. And then on race day, I got across. I mean, it was just like, but the problem with Dragon's Back for me was that when I sort of got across Crib Goch, I was almost like, I've done it. But that was just like the end of day one. But it wasn't even the end of day one. It was like 3/4. So it was still about 5 hours to go. But so my Dragon's Back experience was hard and hellish, and I got back into camp with 15 minutes to spare on day one, and of course with a wet sleeping bag and all the rest of it, I sort of had about 3 hours sleep and was up. So I missed a time cut off in the middle of day 2, which was just like, I mean, obviously incredibly frustrating and disappointing, but by the time I got back to camp, I was sort of ready to go. I didn't go home. I was like, right, let's just finish this, but I'll finish it as a hatchling. So, but it was, I definitely, I found it incredibly hard, just the amount of, I guess, ascent on day one. Just, I think it was, I can't remember what it was on day one now, but yeah, that was a big one. And then obviously we what I've got coming up, I suppose. I've got a bit of history of fundraising for Dallaglio Rugby Works, which is a brilliant charity which helps youth that have been excluded from schools learn life skills through rugby. And I first introduced the charity probably 10 years ago. Lawrence Dallaglio, the ex-England rugby captain, is a good mate of mine. We've known each other for years, and I've been very close to what he's been doing with it. And I think I was fundraising for them for Marathon des Sables as well, and I had the opportunity on a couple of occasions to go down to South Wales, where they've got a couple of their projects, and it really hit me that the youth that are being excluded from school they're exactly like me and my mates were when we were at school. Like there's absolutely no difference, except the world's changed so much now, and that you can get expelled for so much. One of the biggest reasons for being expelled from school at the moment in the UK is non-attendance, and that is non-attendance being caused. They're the victims of the bullying. So if you're being bullied and you don't go to school, you will get expelled. And then, of course, the alarming statistic is that between 60 and 70% of youth that get expelled from school end up in the prison system in the UK. So we're just trying to break that cycle, and that's a charity that means so much to me. So the charity pitched last year to become one of the official charities of the British and Irish Lions Tour of Australia, and won the pitch. And so Lawrence has got a long history of doing big bike rides, but he was like, I'm done with cycling. And I sort of sat down with him and Zena, the CEO of the charity, and they sort of both looked at me, and I think it was a bit of an ambush, but basically suddenly I found myself volunteering to do some sort of running event in Australia. So
there's a bit of a pattern emerging here, Simon. It's like, actually you just seem to be in the wrong place at the right time. Your London Marathon and this event. So
that's it, isn't it? Exactly. I'm always putting my hand up, but and yeah, I've got the map out and pretty quickly realised that the distance from the first test to the third test is pretty much 1,000 kilometres. And then I sort of worked out, okay, well, you've got 14 days between the first and the third test matches. Got the calculator out, and then rather conveniently worked out that about 40 miles a day, and 40 is quite a significant number in the sort of ecosystem of Rugby Works, because it's in the UK 40 children are excluded from school a day. So we were like, okay, well, let's try and do 40 miles every day, and sort of to note and to sort of, I suppose, appreciate and acknowledge every child that's being expelled each day. So that's that really, and here we are. We're fast approaching sort of launch date really.
I think it's fascinating. I just want to rewind a little bit, Simon. You know, just pass a comment if I can.
Yeah.
Just like thinking about like when you were doing the Dragon's Back, and it just shows that actually the challenge isn't always about getting to the finish line, is it? You know, that we might pick up on events that challenge us in different ways. Like for you, fear of heights. For other people, it might be back-to-back running. You know, like I've never done that, and getting back up and being fresh every day. For that, you know, I know you only had three hours, but how do you mentally prepare yourself for getting up the next day and, you know, and running again, even though you had a rubbish night's sleep?
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very hard. But again, it's all about experience, isn't it? Because again, in Marathon des Sables in the Sahara, you're camping in what aren't really tents. You've got sandstorms, you've got extreme cold, heat. So I had a bit of that knowledge. I think tent and stage racing camp admin is really important. Being super organized is very important. And I think that you learn that on Marathon des Sables, how to be really, like, people who do well in stage races, a huge part of it is being super organized and efficient. And I think I took that into Wales. I think one of the differences, well, there were quite a lot of differences between Wales and Morocco, but one of the notable differences was that it was just chucking it down every day. So our kit was wet every day, and not only was our kit wet, our tent had a leak. So our sleeping bags got wet on the first night. So we all had soaking wet sleeping bags the whole week. And so, yeah, it's pretty miserable and pretty difficult. But I think I suppose you create systems, you have checklists. And when you get into camp and you've only got a head torch on and it's pitch black, and you've got other tent mates who probably are already asleep because they're faster than you, and you can't disturb them, you have to have a system, really well-oiled machine of not only getting your recovery in and your food in because you're spent, but preparing for the morning, and that includes clean, because there's no showers or anything, so it's cleaning your feet with wipes, taping your feet to do yourself a favour so you'd have to in the morning, cleaning all your stuff, just airing it, and washing your face, brushing your teeth, getting into bed. You're trying to do that in sort of like an hour, because if you don't, you're losing sleep. And at the same time, I always think about it as doing your future self a favour, and it's like that. I think I think it can be trained, but I do think there are some people that are just better at it than others, who just, you know, there's some people at these stage races. It sometimes they get away, like you get back to the camp and they're just asleep and they're running kit with on top of their backs. And you're just like, you know, it's definitely, that's just going to be awful in the morning. But then they just deal with it. Whereas, yeah, it's like, I guess it's like the people who on nights out never used to get out there, used to get home drunk and just fall asleep on the sofa with their kebab.
Yeah.
That was training. That was the training.
Yeah.
No one told us at the time.
That's not, you know, your future self's not going to thank you. But no, so I think that's a huge element of stage races. And I mean, I'm really lucky actually in Australia that a couple of things, I mean, it's going to be a huge battle. And as I just said, it's 40 miles a day for 14 days. But I mean, there's three things that I've factored into sort of my mental psyche around the race. And first is that I've got a bed every night. Like, it's the first stage race I'm doing where I'll be in bed, which is, it doesn't sound significant, but it really is. Like, compared to the desert and Wales, it's going to be like that so much. So a bed is brilliant. The second thing is it's relatively flat. So it's not sand and it's not mountains. It's just paths, which I'm like, this sounds amazing. In the desert or in the mountains, you give me a path any other week, I'd have bitten your hand off. So they're two big factors. And the third one, which again is different to those last two, is that I'm not carrying my kit. In a Marathon des Sables, you not only carry all your kit, you carry your 7 days worth of food. And so, and Dragon's Back is the same. So it's a really quite a heavy bag you're carrying. I think I started at 10 kgs on both of bag weight. And so just, Dragon's Back going up hills just on day one, it's enough. So I'm just going to be out running like you'd be out running on a Sunday morning with, so those three things are giving me a lot of hope and confidence, because they were three of the toughest things on the previous stage race I've done.
That's really interesting. And who's going to be joining you on this challenge?
Yeah,
Lifetime, I suppose.
it's an ever evolving, moving beast, to be honest, because we're so conscious that we want as much money as possible to go into the charity's pocket. So I'm funding myself personally and a friend to go out, and my friend is a guy who calls James McQuaid, who I met in the Sahara on the on the Sahara and the MDS, and so James is going to run my support vehicle, and so it's the two of us. And obviously, because we are sort of closely wrapped into the British and Irish Lions tour, we've got a couple of ex-Lions players joining us for various stages. Dan Bigger is going to be doing a shakeout run with us on the day before the run. And then on the final day, we've got Alex Cuthbert, former Welsh international and Lion, joining us in Sydney. And then you may have come across a British running influencer, a really great guy called Johnny Davies.
Yeah.
And Johnny's done a few bits and pieces. He's actually out there for the rugby, heard about what we're doing, and he's going to join us on the shakeout run and probably join us for one of the 2 days. He's training for Berlin. So, and then we've got a lad who is is part of the production team of a rugby podcast called the Rugby Pod. And so Rob Graham is going to do the first 3 days. So we've got a nice mix of people. I think as we go down the coast, we've got different run clubs and rugby clubs joining us at different points. I think what I'm trying to, and I've had a lot of help with a lady called Rachel Adams at the charity in putting it all together, is that, and I should also credit Joe Ward, my coach. He actually runs Manly Running Club in Sydney, and he has the fastest known time for the route, which I'm not trying to break, but I found him on.
It happens.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't know I'm trying to beat it, but I will. No. I won't. But he's been a huge help. But I think what there's this balance, isn't there, when you're doing events like this, to balance the physical sort of endeavour and challenge with the fundraising.
Yeah.
And not only the sort of fundraising, but just the mechanics of the run, because I've got a real strategy in mind for every day, and that is sort of moving at 7 kilometers an hour. I've got, I know already where my food break is going to be, and there's a lot of detail in it. And so when you've got someone joining you who's training for the Berlin Marathon, you're sort of like, hey, like, you're not training Berlin Marathon today.
Please go a little bit slower today.
Yeah.
Like, lay off the pace a bit.
The old adage, you've got to run your own race, will never apply more than these 14 days, because I'll have, some junior rugby clubs joining me some mornings, and then, you've got someone who's just joining you and as part of their 10K for the morning. And so it's just, I have to be so disciplined to just stay at my pace, because if I don't, I'm just going to ruin myself.
Oh, totally. Do you know what I love the community aspect of this, and of course, community is really important when it comes to supporting young individuals who are struggling to access the system, and so actually that marries up quite nicely, doesn't it? But and especially that 5K shakeout in Brisbane that you're doing. What sort of crowd are you expecting on that day?
Oh, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, obviously I've never hosted a shakeout run because I'm not a running influencer, but it's sort of like, it was funny because I was just like, okay, we'll do the shakeout run. And then a few people, and we haven't even publicised it yet, and then a few people were like, oh, it seems interesting. So I know a few broadcasters, and there's quite a lot of, obviously, I think there's 18,000 Lions fans going over the game. Right. So there's quite a few people I know are like, yeah, we'll come. And but then obviously when you've got someone like Johnny Davies, who's like knows how to organise a shakeout run. I was chatting to him the other day, he's like, right. And I was like, he's like, okay, I've got a big following in Brisbane. And then I started to think, oh shit, like what if like 500 people turned up? I mean, it's great because I've said that we're going to ask everyone to donate $10 to the charity to come along. So that's brilliant. But I did suddenly have to go onto sort of Google Earth and just double check where we've picked. And thankfully, there was no strategy. Well, yeah, it's thankfully and no strategy at all. It's next to a park, which is complete luck. We just picked a hotel that someone recommended. So thankfully it is by the park, and thankfully it's only 5K. Listen, I think it'd be a lovely problem to have if a load of people turn up. But yeah, you're right. It's I think for me, it's sort of selfish, I suppose. It's quite nice to sort of you know, like running is quite a lonely sport. Like I'm not a member of a run club. I'm sure we'll chat about Save Ourselves later, but within that sort of brand and business, there's a lot of events we get involved with, but I spend 99% of my training alone. So actually to be part of a big group the day before I set off on this big adventure, I think will just fill me with some good, because I think it's going to be lonely out there as well. And I think just seeing so many faces will really help me.
Absolutely. I'm so inspired. I feel like I should go for a run now.
Just come to Brisbane. If you like rugby, it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
It's a perfect holiday.
I mean, I would love to, if only. And actually, I really connect with this whole idea of having other people who are coming along to support something that you're kind of interested in or whatever it is a very humbling experience. And I think that humbling aspect of doing these large challenges is really quite empowering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you found that previously?
It is, and also I'm trying to. I think what the message ultimately the message I'm trying to get across is obviously the Rugby Works message about how these youths. There's no such thing as bad kids. There's no such thing as bad youths. It's bad environment, it's bad parenting, and it's bad luck. And you know, we're really trying to break that cycle, and that I'm really passionate about it. It could have happened to any of us. It may have happened to you. It certainly happened to mates of mine at school who got expelled, and you know their life changed, and that makes me angry and sad. So that is the primary message. But one of the secondary messages I want people to take from the platform I'm creating is just that I am a normal guy who got into running 8 years ago. I was never a high school jock. I was never a runner at school. I was never in a running club. And actually, it's no coincidence that my life has got 100% better since I started running. And that includes home life, marriage, kids, business. It's all got better. And I absolutely credit that to running. Like running has changed my life. And, you know, before running, I was, you know, I'm happy to talk about it. I had a lot of mental health challenges. I was in a private hospital for 6 months with depression and severe anxiety caused by work. And I had other issues in my life. And since I started running, I think a whole host of things, just getting that early morning win, the chemical releases, the community, the discipline, the structure, has all just by osmosis fed into all aspects of my life. And so I just want other people to see that. Like I'm not on this platform saying, look at me, I'm this guy, you know, I'm saying, look at me, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I really hope that, you know, anyone that comes across this run over the next, you know, whatever it is, 4 weeks, you know, or 5 weeks, if they just dig into my story, they can just grab that this guy used to be just a little booze hound in London, and now look at him.
Yeah, we're important ambassadors, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, as we always talk about that.
This is it. It's so important.
Really
so
relate
important.
to your story. It is a bit similar to mine. I've only been running for 5 years.
Yeah.
I was fat, overweight.
Yeah.
Went to the doctors. They said you've got to change your lifestyle, and I started with couch to 5k.
Yeah, amazing.
I love it.
Yeah, it's so empowering, and I think it's always the first bit's the hardest, isn't it? I think, and that's what, and I know I sort of joked about the sort of, it's serious actually, the 10Ks and the carb loading before them, but I wish I'd documented the start more, because then I'd almost have a bit more of a playbook to hand on to people, because I think the hardest ones are the sort of when you've never run or haven't run for a long, long time, and you're in a cycle of unhealthy food, drinking, probably just general bad health habits all over the shop. And it's like, it's not just the first one, it's then how do you back that up for a few weeks? Like how do you then go on the second one, the third one, and then suddenly you probably have less beer and cook pasta instead of ordering a pizza in. And do you know what I mean? It's before you know it, you're saying no to garlic dip, and the fucking world's gone mad. Like it's, and that's sort of how it happens.
But then I really love the running community. You know, when you're out on a run, only if you just going out for 2 or 3 miles, you meet someone, you can start chatting. They tell you their story. It's so It's like a drug.
Yeah. Do you know what? So let me brilliantly say
drug.
Yeah, better.
Well, you say that. So it's funny. I mentioned Race the Stones back in 2019, and that's one of. It's funny. I mean, I'm 49 now, so I grew up in the sort of early 90s, big in the rave scene. Used to go to all the rave all nighters, mainly in the countryside in Wiltshire. And it's so funny because there's so many similarities between, I feel, going out on these long runs, these ultras, when the sun's setting or even the sun's rising, and you're meeting people you've never met, and they just ask you who you are, where you're from, what's your name, what you on, and it's the same thing, but it's just 30 years fast forwarded, but in a much healthier wrapper. And I love it, and it's such a friendly, and there's often music involved as well in the running, and it's like I find that so empowering. Funny. Just going back to, I was at the running show, national running show at the NEC in January, and we'll talk about, I'm sure, the brand that we launched, and we there's a few people who are part of the business who aren't runners, and they're hikers or marketeers, and it was so funny because the running show, everyone's so nice, everyone's so friendly, and they just couldn't believe it, and we sort of like at the end of the first day, one of the guys who's not a runner just grabbed me and said, "Isn't Mills just everyone really, really friendly in this community?" And I was like, "Mate, everyone's so positive and so friendly." And it's like, what a place to launch a business, because everyone was just, buying product, being so complimentary, saying they'll give it to friends, feedback to friends, pass it on, and then they do that. And so you're there. It's just, it's such an amazing community of people, and I think it's what a community to stumble across, really.
It's intoxicating, actually, isn't it?
Really is.
You've mentioned the brand a few times. So
sorry, shameless plugs.
That's all. No,
Go for it.
and we want to talk to you about it. We first got switched on with the Atacama Shoe Dryer. Can you just tell us a little bit about your products and what they do and.
So Save Our Souls is primarily a foot health and foot care brand that was launched at the start of this year. And the reason for the brand, the real insight came across, as I said, I came down to Sussex in 2020 and spent a lot of time running on the South Downs. And a lot of my running was done in that initial lockdown, with both in summer and winter, but only on trail. And I very quickly developed foot health problems, and I never in my life had chilblains on my feet, never in my life had foot fungal infections, and was a real sort of scratching head, did the research, went to chiropodist, podiatrist. No one really knew why I was suddenly getting these issues. And then we very quickly worked out that I was putting on damp running shoes every morning. And so we've got a sort of room out the back by the kitchen that I keep all my trainers in. And, it's like winter, summer, you come down, you're on autopilot, you have your espresso, you go out, you put your shoes on, you're out, but every morning I was putting on damp shoes. And so I sort of started doing research about this, and lo and behold, I was like, well, hold on a second, these shoes need to be dried properly. And then you fall down a bit of a rabbit hole of best ways of drying shoes, and of course there isn't one. There is newspaper, there's the airing cupboard, there's the boiler, there's the radiator, there's some really bizarre things you'll find, but none really work, and those that do work either damage the shoe or stink the house out and offend your family. So I thought, hold on a second, there's a bit of a gap here. I then started researching shoe dryers, and very quickly sort of realized there was a bit of a white space here. There was no real brand. There were a few products, a bits of sort of no more than cheap bits of plastic from China, basically. So I ordered all of them, tested all of them, and most were falling apart after a couple of weeks. They were just not great. So I thought, right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna launch a shoe dryer, but we didn't want to become a shoe dryer brand. We wanted to become a foot care brand. So I very quickly assembled a sort of team of Avengers around me who I knew would be good to have on the mission. And part of that group of owners, we've got a brilliant female ultra runner called Sophie Bennett. We've got a brilliant military nurse called Neil Middleton, who I met on Dragon's Back, who's a field medic. We've got a creative agency, production business. We've got a brand strategist. We've got a lawyer. We've got a famous ex-rugby league player called Jamie Peacock. We've got a brilliant top guy, dad of two, TV host called Jeff Brazier. We've got a whole host of people who all share our passion, and I've known them all from different walks of life. So we got the team together. We spent last year, went out to China, met loads of factories. We developed a product with someone, and obviously then tested it. And so, yeah, the Atacama Shoe Dryer was born, and we launched it at the running show. So that's our first product. We are very close to launching our second product. I won't tell you what that is. That'll be launching in 4 weeks' time. Spoiler, yeah, exactly. But that'll be launching in 4 weeks' time. And again, it's something where we genuinely believe we're fixing a problem in foot health. I think what's really interesting, and a lot of runners, from everyone from your 5Ks to your stage racers, all have different foot care stories, and they're all different. And the sort of the common thread I find in most of them is that your high street chemists or pharmacies just don't have the solutions. There is one brand I won't name that's been around for 50 years, and that is the only brand you will find in boots. And for such an important body part, which obviously is so central to our living existence, our movement, it's really odd that it's not looked after. And we did a lot of sessions with podiatrists and chiropodists last year, and they were so excited because from a business, they basically see people from the age of 45 onwards. And when most people come to them, they said the damage is already done. It's just really damage limitation. And so they are so excited that there's a brand that's coming into the market that will behave like a cool brand, create content, have interesting people involved, that will help people just start to think about their feet. Because there's some amazing studies done, and I'll share the reports with you guys, just about how people don't think about their feet that much, mainly because they're always covered up, and secondly because it's the furthest thing from your brain. Which means that, and you'll know the stories about the women in high heels and then damaging their feet for life, but they don't think of the damage and they don't care. And even runners, like, the amount of time you spend on your feet, the amount of attention we give our feet is crazy. So that saved our souls. And yeah, it's been a brilliant journey so far. And yeah, it's one of the interesting insights that we're yet to really crack was that obviously the product is going to be more popular in winter when it's raining. But we knew that sweat is a big problem. And again, drying sweaty shoes is as much a problem as drying wet shoes from rain. So, but we haven't really, it got warm in the UK quite early this year, so we weren't really ready for that. And so, we have had sales have dipped a bit, but interestingly enough, brilliant story. And I don't know when the show's going out, so this might date, but currently at Wimbledon, there's a young British tennis player who just today has got through the third round, Sonny Cartel, who actually reached out to us because she plays a lot of tennis in Florida, and she'd seen the product and basically how she's always having problems with drying her sweaty tennis shoes. So that's just a really interesting use case for us, that this isn't just for runners, and it is for people who have sweaty feet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I really like about this is in a world where products could be seen as quite gimmicky, is that actually what you've done is you've navigated this very scientifically, and also singing to people's passions, isn't it? Have you found that journey quite difficult? Is like pitching it to the right thing and saying, look, this isn't gimmicky, we've actually got a genuine product here that can aid because as runners we're always looking for that 10th, aren't we? That 10th
absolutely
foot up that might make a difference for us. So you might jump for gimmicks. So how do we avoid that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we're very aware of that. And I think there's a few things that we were really keen to do, and so we've been really open with all the big running publications, and we've spoken to a lot. We got a brilliant review in Runner's World last month where the editor basically called it a game changer, which for us was just like, wow, like that. He's the editor of the biggest running magazine in the UK, and he's got one, and to call it a game changer was pretty significant. We've had brilliant endorsements from Russ Cook, the hardest geezer, Spencer Matthews, who does lots of challenges, I don't know if you guys have come across Lloyd Purvis, who has a brilliant channel called Run for Adventure down in Cornwall. Yeah. Lloyd reviewed it on his channel, and again, there was no we didn't pay him. He just reviewed it, and it's an incredible review. And so I think the things we have to do are sort of break ingrained behaviours, because so many people are, I guess, so ingrained in just stuffing them behind the radiator after a wet run or putting them in the airing cupboard. So it's going to take a bit of time, and I think a lot of that is initially going to come out through awareness. And then, I don't want to bore you guys with all the marketing stuff, but I think if we can get the awareness and the validation, prove the product works, and then I think people start seeing it more in the running community, I think it'll be an easier thing. But we've had, we've been live since 6th of January. We've been selling roughly 3-4 products a week. We've only had one return, and that one return was a lady bought it for her son and he didn't want it. So we're incredibly proud of that. The reviews are brilliant. But it's probably going to take us a bit longer than we thought, just because it's a new product. It is £95, but the reason it's £95 is that it will last you forever. It's and there's a 3-year warranty on it. It's made really well, and I think that's the other thing, that anyone that's bought a shoe dryer for 20 quid or 30 quid on Amazon, and it comes in a mysterious box from sort of the Far East, just be careful, because it's and as I said, I've tested all of them, and actually I've had mechanics take them all apart, and a lot of them are just quite dangerous. So ours is UKCA registered, so we've done everything correctly, which unfortunately can put a bit of money on top of it, for the cheap version. But it's a brilliant product, well made, and we're really excited. It's actually really funny, because I sort of half joke to my wife now that when I wake up and it's raining, I'm like, yes. I've never had a reason. I mean, I'm having a nightmare at the moment. It's sunny every day. I'm like, where's the rain? But
I'm do you know what, one of the applications I'm already thinking about is that we at our running club, we run a race called the Doynton Hard Half Marathon, which is in South Gloucestershire, and it involves 2 river traverses during the race. And I'm just there thinking, just have we could have like a line of them at the end of the race. Everyone can try their shoes.
Well, this is it. And we had it a backyard ultra a couple of weeks ago, and really nice event down in Hampshire called the Blended Trails, and we set up at the HQ, and it was pouring. It was about a month ago. It was pouring rain most of the day and night. And so, we had a station set up and people using it. But again, it was sort of like, at first, people were a bit like, what's this, what's that? And you sit them down and you talk about it. And so at Backyard Ultra, it's brilliant, because if you've got 3 pairs on rotation, you can come back, and after, I mean, we try and articulate on the website. Obviously, it depends the make of the shoe and the brand of the shoe as to how quickly it takes to dry and how wet it is. But on the whole, 30-40 minutes will dry most shoes. Wow. So you think on a backyard, if you've got 2 shoes, you always can set off with a dry pair, which, when you're getting into the real back end of a backyard ultra, that can be really helpful.
It almost makes me want to do one. Because we're going to have to probably wrap up soon, but we've got one more question.
Yeah, one more question is, so how can our listeners get involved with your challenge? Tell us.
Brilliant. I really appreciate that, guys. So as I said, I actually set off from Brisbane on Saturday the 19th, and I've got 2 weeks to get to Sydney to the 2nd of August. So that's 70k a day. So we've got a Just Giving page, and any amount of donation goes straight to charity. As I said, I'm self-funding the crew and everything, so it's all straight to charity, any money that goes on there. So hopefully we can link that in the show notes. It's also on my social media, which is at Ultra Entrepreneur, which again, if you guys can put in the show, that's would be brilliant. And obviously, if we get some clips out there, promote that. But it's a wonderful charity, and any support. And we haven't quite worked out how. I think probably just Instagram that will be the way that we'll document how I'm getting on. We've looked at various trackers, but again, it's an added cost that we don't really want to carry. So Strava and Instagram, we hopefully because you'll obviously be waking up as I finish each day. So not that I'll be the first thing on your mind in the morning, but it's a quite an interesting one for the sort of family and friends that this sort of stuff top 10. But yeah, thank you so much, and I'll anything you guys can sort of point people towards me, that'd be brilliant.
Oh, we'll be sure to follow you. That's absolutely certain. Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we wish you all the best. And it sounds awesome. Wish I was with you for at least one of the days.
Well, I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be great to have sort of like a catch up with you afterwards.
Brilliant, love that.
Oh, it was fabulous to hear from Simon there.
It was really interesting.
All of his adventures that he's done, thinking about his charity event.
Yeah, I just can't believe. I mean, to run 1,000 kilometres is a long way.
Yeah, it is, and it's really hard to kind of fathom that if you've not really done that before. We just wanted to remind you that we've got 2 other episodes that have recently been released. So we had the special episode with Krista talking about her backyard ultra on the 9th of August, where there's tickets still available. That's raising money for the Andy Mans Club.
Yeah, that's really good. If you can get involved, everybody, go for it. And also we had Neil on.
Yeah, that was episode 10.
Which is obviously our chairman and leader of the club. And that was a really interesting interview as well.
Okay, and you can catch up with both of those by looking at all normal streaming platforms. So yeah, that's it from us for today. And thank you for listening. I've been Martin.
I've been Josh.
And you've been listening to Stride by Stride.